Hey there, it's Corey with Ascend Smarter Intervention, where we make research-based reading intervention easy. And today, for our intervention tip of the week, I wanted to share with you our lesson plan outline. So one of the things that we want to do when we are putting an intervention plan together is we want to make sure that we are truly hitting on each of the 5 core components of literacy. So we talk about this all the time, but the 5 core components that we want to be making sure that we're addressing are phonological awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, comprehension. And then sometimes we also want to make sure that we're looking at sight words as well. So we can talk a little bit about that. The other thing that we want to keep in mind is that while research has really supported how effective these 5 skills or foundations are in terms of developing reading skills, we also know that we have a reciprocal process for writing in each of those domains as well. So we want to make sure that when we're putting together an intervention plan that we're not just targeting reading, but that we're also targeting the flip side of that coin as well, writing in each of our lessons. Now, the thing is that sometimes we don't have enough time to be able to go through all of this in one intervention session, especially if you only have 20 minutes or 30 minutes that you're seeing students, you're going to need to break it up. And so what we've done is we really put together the different types of activities that we want to make sure that we're hitting and about the amount of time that each of those is going to take, so that if we only have small blocks, we can really take a look at which sections we're going to be hitting. So when we do our lessons, the first thing that we're always going to focus on is phonological awareness. And we have a 10-part drill that we use, but we've broken it down into a 5-part drill for reading warm-up and then a 5-part drill for writing or spelling warm-up, because phonological awareness has really 2 components. So either you're blending sounds together to create words, which is critical for reading, or you're segmenting syllables or sounds, which is really critical for spelling. And so you can definitely warm students up with those blending, so blending syllables, blending sounds before reading, and then segmenting words into syllables, like how many syllables in crocodile, how many sounds in bat. And we can go ahead and look at that before we go into the writing. So we always go ahead and start there. And then if we're recognizing that there are any breakdowns for our students in terms of assessments that we've done, progress monitoring, we talked about those in the last couple of weeks, then we might layer in an additional activity there just to really support that growth as well. Then as we transition into phonics, one of the first things that we always do is an alphabet arc or an alphabet sequencing task, where we're essentially just asking students to take alphabet magnets, letter magnets, and put them in order as quickly as they can. And this is really great because sequencing can be really challenging for some of our struggling students. And it's another way just to warm up the brain for that visual sequence, that sound sequence that we need for words. Then we always do a letter or a pattern review. So whatever the phonogram pattern that we previously taught was, we want to make sure that we're systematically reviewing all of those. So not even just the pattern that we just taught, but all previous patterns. We want to make sure that they're holding on to those. So for example, if we've taught TCH, DGE, we want to make sure that we're giving students an opportunity to remind us what those letter patterns in isolation say. Then we move on to introducing a new letter or a new pattern. When we're doing that, we're going to be making sure that we're very systematically following a scope and sequence in order to do that. Then we're going to move on to a blending activity where we're actually reading full words at that point. After that, typically what we do is we move on to a vocabulary activity where we take the words that we've just finished reading and we identify whether those words are nouns, verbs, or adjectives. We usually keep it at that, even though we know there are other parts of speech. If students can really recognize nouns, verbs, and adjectives, it's going to get them pretty far and where we need them to go. And it helps them to really start thinking about what that is. So we call it categories word boxes, where essentially we'll take the words that they've just read and we'll put them into category word boxes. So nouns, verbs, adjectives. You're just taking a 3-part table and sorting those that way. Then that's also another good opportunity to look at multiple meaning words and things like that, where words could be nouns and verbs or things like that. Then we move into fluency. When we're looking at fluency, we want to look at fluency at the word level, the sentence level, and the passage level. All of those are really, really important. We have a little typo there. We'll get that fixed because I want to get you guys this lesson plan outline as a free download. So we want to make sure that we're hitting words, sentences, and passages. So we can take the words that they had just read or even review words and see how many words per minute are students able to read. Sentence level fluency is important because we want to start taking a look at how does that come together. One of the things that we look at when we're doing sentence level fluency is, can students also identify the who or what, did what, why, when, or how of the sentence? So really identifying that subject, predicate, and adverbial, and dividing or scooping up their sentences so that they recognize that prosody and that fluency during that time. And then passage level, we're looking at, can they put multiple sentences together to continue that prosody? We're really looking at words per minute at this point, but it is important to recognize that words per minute is not always the best indicator of fluency. And so we need to be really careful of that, but it is a nice, easy measure that we can take a look at. Then when we look at comprehension, it's like I just said, we're looking at, can students identify the who or what, did what, why, when, or how? If they can scoop the sentence that way in this sentence level diagramming, we know that we're able to start creating a picture, a mental picture in our head of what's going on. Then of course we want to look at story or passage level comprehension questions as well. We want to make sure that students are able to identify main idea, that they're able to sequence, that they're understanding key vocabulary, that they're making inferences, predictions. There's a number of comprehension strategies that we want to make sure are in place, and they're going to be building in sequential as well. And then, depending on the age and ability level of your students, you may want to look at sight words. There's two different ways you can take a look at this. You can look at this as just high frequency words, or you can take a look at sight words as phonetically irregular words that don't follow our regular phonogram patterns and rules. So those pieces are really important. Then, when we flip into spelling, we're going to do the same thing. So not just spelling, but writing as a whole. We're going to do that 5-part phonological awareness drill, really focused on segmenting syllables, segmenting sounds, because that's how we spell. Then we look at what we call orthographic mapping, which is we hear a sound with the letter, the visual that matches that sound. So the auditory drill is when we would say something like, oi, what says oi? Give me 2 options for spelling oi. And we're looking for OI and OY from the student. Then we're going to look at review spelling. So we're pulling all previous patterns that have been taught, as well as new spelling. So whatever the new pattern that we just taught is, that spelling is really important. Then what we'll do is we'll ask students, again, to sort their spelling words into nouns, verbs, adjectives. And then what we'll do is make them pick 1 noun, 1 verb, 1 adjective to create a subject, predicate, adverbial. And sometimes it ends up being a little bit silly. Sometimes it doesn't, but it's a fun activity for them to really start categorizing and conceptualizing how those words come together. Then we're going to look at sentence dictation. So this is when you're providing a sentence specifically to your students. Now, as they start to get more able to work at a higher level, sentence dictation is the easiest because you're providing the sentence and all they need to do is write it down. So they're really checking for their capitals, their organization, punctuation, and spelling. But as they get more complex in their writing abilities, we start also looking at, can they combine 2 sentences together to create a syntactically correct sentence? Can they really create that silly sentence creation? Can they put together a syntactically correct sentence on their own? So that's going to be really, really important. And then, depending on the student's age and ability level, we're either looking at handwriting, so that's going to be for a more basic level, or we're looking at graphic organizers and really being able to organize thoughts once we get past the sentence level into the paragraph and passage level. So we're either looking at handwriting at the younger levels, or for older students, we may be looking at their ability to graphically organize multi-sentence, paragraph, or essay level composition. And then again, we're looking at sight words or read words if we need to focus on spelling those words that are just phonetically irregular. So that's how we set up our lesson. So we always want to make sure before we move on to a new topic, we've hit all of these different pieces. Hopefully that helps. We'll go ahead and link this up so that you can use this to help guide your lessons. Let us know if you have any questions in the comments, and we'll look forward to chatting further about lesson planning this month.